what's up, everyone? Today we're talking to Carlos Amezcua, a veteran news anchor, talk show host, co-founder of BEOND TV, the recipient of 22 Emmy Awards, one for Outstanding Journalistic Enterprise and another for his coverage of Mexican politics. He also received awards from the Associated Press, the Radio Television News Association's Golden Mics, and was part of the team that won the prestigious George Foster Peabody Award. Please welcome Carlos Amezcua to the Untied podcast.
Woo. Thank you so much. Good to be with you guys.
We're happy you could make it. So I wanted to talk a little bit about, first of all, the fact that you won 22 Emmy Awards.
Yeah, while you were saying that, I actually held it up and did a close-up on the camera. I'll do it again because, it's like I like to thank the little people who made these happen. The truth about it is that, people don't win Emmys or awards like that in television or in anything really without a great supporting cast, producers and writers and camera people who really make you look good. And I've been fortunate to work with some of the very best people in media. I mean, these guys guys and gals just elevated my game. And that's what it's all about, is elevating your game. And every time you get nominated, you go, oh, really? Was it that good? And then you win and you just can't believe it because you just do it because that's your job and you want to do the very best. And it's so gratifying when somebody says, here, have a trophy for it.
But you moved around. Were you just on Fox, or were you moved around a little bit, right, between stations?
Yeah. I mean, I've had a very long, 45 years in television. I've worked at a dozen TV stations. And honestly, in the early years of anybody's career, at least back in the 70s when I started, it was pretty common for people to move around. So you would spend a year or a year and a half at a small TV station and then move to another TV station to get a raise because the current boss is never going to give you a raise. And so you go to the next station. And so for the first 5 years, I moved around quite a bit. And then I settled in. I spent a bit of time in San Diego, my hometown, working as a reporter. Got a job at CBS News in New York. And after a couple of years there, I really didn't fit in with the New York vibe. So I moved back to Los Angeles and worked on the KTLA Morning News, where I spent almost 20 years. And I've been in LA almost 30 years, 30 plus years. So I've worked most of my life here in Los Angeles.
Wow. Yeah, that's a lot. I mean,
it's been a long time.
So starting from, I guess, the beginning of your journey, what would you say the moment you decided to get into broadcasting?
Yeah, that's an interesting story because when I was at university, I was majoring in fine art. I wanted to be a professional oil painter. I wanted to study in Italy. I wanted to learn the master's touch and to be able to do things the way they did it. I've been painting since I was, 6 or 7 years old. And I really felt that was my calling in life until I met a girl and fell in love with the girl. And we got a little serious. So we went home to meet mom and dad. And dad was a very successful dentist. And he said, so what are you studying in school there, Carlos? I said, fine art. He goes, well, that's a nice hobby. How are you going to make a living? I said, well, selling my artwork. I'm really good at this. And he goes, I don't care if you're Rembrandt, you're going to starve as an artist. And no one like that's going to be able to support my daughter. Look at how she's used to living, right? So he actually helped me, even though he was criticizing, he helped me kind of think about what I was doing in school. And I looked around for something perhaps in advertising and, so anyway, so I started looking around in school to see if I could find something that would suit my talents. And I was particularly good at writing and reading and writing because English is my second language. So I excelled in English and I got A's in English. And so news writing was a class that I took. And before I knew it, I was into broadcasting. I was doing radio programs and then eventually TV programs. And that's what launched my career.
Wow.
Carlos, my father would always give me crap because in high school I would get A+ in Spanish class, and then when it came to the English classes, I would get C's and sometimes lower, but that's not important. But in your entire career, are there any stories you can look back on and you're just like, wow, I can't believe I had the honor or privilege of breaking it and or just speaking on it?
Well, I mean, during my watch, and I call it my watch, in the years that I worked in television, in LA, the big story was the Rodney King beating and the following riots and what happened. And I covered that in LA, and that was a big moment in my career. I also covered the Mexico City earthquake in 1985. I covered one of the most spectacular mafia hits you've ever seen in New York City. It was, an amazing experience for a young reporter to cover a mafia hit in a restaurant that looked like something out of The Godfather. And then, of course, 9/11 was a big moment for me. I was sitting at the anchor chair when the second plane hit, and we thought the first one was an accident. The second one, clearly something was really weird, and that changed everybody's life forever. I think that was a seminal moment in my career. And over the years, I've covered fires and earthquakes and flooding and all kinds of disasters, and I've done that all over the world. And it's kind of like right place, right time kind of thing. And in the last 45 years, a lot of cool things have happened that I've covered, and I mean cool by journalistically cool. A lot of mayhem, I guess, and death and mayhem, which is kind of stock and trade for journalists, which is terrible, but that's the way life is for us.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense.
Yeah, I'm glad it makes sense to you.
I mean, I guess if it's a big enough story, obviously you can't just ignore it.
No, you can't.
So going from, this, covering the, chaos and mayhem that, the world brings on, you worked your way through the different stations, moved around a bunch, and then you ended up finally, winning your first Emmy Award. For what was the feeling like when you just saw the first one and you were like, just held it?
Well, I have to say, honestly, I didn't expect it. I was nominated for a terrible story, a tragedy that I covered in San Diego, where two kids were playing with an unexploded bomb in the canyons of San Diego, where George Patton used to train his troops in those canyons with the tanks for World War II. And so there were a lot of unexploded bombs in those canyons that eventually they were able to clear out. But unfortunately, these two kids found one of the bombs and it killed both of them. And I covered the story, and I guess the story was emotional enough and strong enough that it won my first Emmy. I didn't expect it, and I felt really weird about it. I have to be honest with you. It felt really strange to be winning an award for something that was so tragic. I would learn later throughout the years, subsequent years, of course, that was kind of the way it was, that you really can't control what the story is, but how you produce it and how you approach it and what you say and how you say it and what kind of feelings you emote from the stuff that you write and the stuff that you say. That's really what wins hearts and minds in media. And that's how you tell a story and be as truthful and objective as you can. And that first time I'm standing on stage, literally shaking because I was so surprised, first of all, to win. And then thinking about what can I say that doesn't sound flip or stupid. I don't even remember what I said. I think I mumbled a bunch of stuff and thanked everybody that helped me. But yeah, that was a very strange moment. Emmy 22, a whole different ball game. By the time I had been on stage so much, I had said, okay, that night, when I won my 21st and 22nd Emmy was one night, and I had done a medical story and another story that had done very well, but it was more of a featurey story. A lot easier to say thank you and be kind of fun and happy and buoyant about it. But boy, I tell you what, news runs the gamut. You just never know what's going to happen.
Oh yeah, I mean, well, we were even talking about that because when we were looking over the show notes right before this, I was like, we were talking about like 22 Emmys. Like,
yeah, we didn't even have 22 friends.
Like by the time you get
I don't
to
believe
22, because you think about it, by the time you get to 22 Emmys, you're like added to the shelf. You know what I mean? It's
Right.
like it's like, thank you, you know, all this stuff. Like, you still feel the same way, but like the actual Emmy, you're like, yeah, I've held one of these before.
Well,
like,
and it's like, are they all in a trophy case somewhere, or like are they just around the house as paperweights now at this point?
Yeah, no, they're actually in a trophy case. Well put. We bought an armoire with glass around it, and they're very pretty, and they look really nice. And this one I just yanked out of the box and put it up here so that I could. I do all of my interviews and things for BEOND TV right here, and so the Emmy's always there to remind people, you know, that I'm legit. Otherwise, I'd just be some other guy in a black shirt.
Well, I mean, we would like to be legit. So if you want to send one or two over this way, that way people will take us seriously. That'd be great.
All right.
And then people will ask us about him. They'll be like, "Oh, you guys won an Emmy?" I'm like, "No. But we know the guy.
Yeah,
won those, so.
We know a guy who has an Emmy."
Yeah, I mean, that's what friends do. We just borrow stuff.
So speaking of BEOND TV, like what was it like going from like working at the different TV networks and stations to kind of just being like, I'm going to run my own? Like, what was that thought process like?
Well, eventually, I mean, after doing what I did for so many years, I really felt that it was time for me to transition to the executive side, and felt that there was a need for more Latino representation at the upper echelon of network television. And I just couldn't push through the glass ceiling. It's really, really tough to push through. It's a very tight-knit club, and only a selected few, when you can think about all the media companies that are out there, there's maybe a couple dozen big media companies, and they're all, pretty much part of the same club. These people have known each other for years, and it's really tough to break through. So I said, let's think outside the box. So I had a conversation with my daughter, who's also a media executive. She used to work at E! Networks and worked at Current TV, did all their live stuff. And she said, why don't we build our own network? There's technology now that we can do that. And so we set out to do just that, thinking that we could actually do something. And we started off with one little show, and now we have 8 shows and a network that distributes all over the world. We're signing deals to provide video and content to 100 stations around the country. And it's just really grown. And the truth of the matter is that we're in charge. We run our own business. It's our own company. We call the shots. We bring in who we want. We work with who we want. We like people. And so if they're good people and they have an idea and good content, we promote them and help them. And along the way, we hope to make some money. So that's kind of the way that is. And my vision of it, I mean, if I can be as big thinking as I could be, would be that it would be as big as Netflix and Hulu and all of those, and that we would grow to that size. But right now we're just, we're a pretty feisty startup, and we're doing pretty well. And BEOND TV is BEOND.TV. For those of you who are listening and want to see what I look like when I'm doing my show, you can check that out. But it's really a lot of fun. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work for an old guy like me, but it's really fun. And so BEOND TV now has grown to 8 shows, soon to be 9. We're going to be seen in 90 plus TV stations around the country, already on digital platform, and growing on Roku, Amazon Fire, and Apple TV. And so we're just, expanding every single day. And it's kind of fun because it's a whole new world for me, as opposed to just being an anchor or news reporter. I'm now running my own little media empire, and with our team, who's terrifically talented, and just like, getting an award, you can't do it alone. And this team has been really producing, even through the pandemic, which is kind of fun. That's awesome. And well, you're still doing that other part that you're used to, though, with the anchor. And then you have your co-host with you, which what was her name? Lisa Remillard. Yeah. So Lisa and I, that was the first show we developed, was Carlos and Lisa. Lisa and I worked together in San Diego, and we had a great time. So we thought we'd start our own little talk show, and it turned into a pretty big talk show. And we've had all kinds of big guests and fun guests, and really it's kind of like Ryan and Kelly, but I'm a lot older than Ryan, and she's younger than Kelly. So it's kind of a fun mix, and we talk about a lot of things, and we have fun, and we poke fun at each other. But that was kind of the nucleus of our company. So we started off with the Carlos and Lisa piece, and then moved on to other things. So now we have a Las Vegas show, we have Beyond the Blockchain, we have a travel show, we have a cooking show, we have all kinds of things that are developing, and the network is starting to grow, and I hope to be as big as Netflix and Hulu and all of them.
Yeah. Well, and those were the clips that I saw were the ones of you and Lisa when I was doing this, because that's what came up. When I was doing research and Googled, I was like, it was like Carlos and Lisa. And I was like, which, I mean, I had known of, I just hadn't seen any clips before, but it was you guys look like you're having a great time. And I think the chemistry, like they're like on camera chemistry is really what sells a show, what makes it great. And I think you guys are like killing it with that. And
Thanks.
Like, it looks super natural. Did you guys like, I mean, you obviously worked together before, but like, was it right off the bat, you guys just hit it off?
No, heck, no. Interestingly enough, when we first met, there was a distinct dislike between the two of us. I don't think she liked me, and I didn't care for her much. And actually, that kind of grating tension between us was what really made it good. Because she would say something ridiculous, and I'd say, "What are you talking about?" Or I'd say something like old school, baby boomer kind of thing, and she would go, "God, you're so old." And so that kind of thing was, people like that kind of conversation on TV because it's real, it's authentic. We're not reading a script. It's not made up. It's who we are. She can be a little bit tough on me, and I can sometimes be a little bit of a weirdo. So I get called out on it. It's a lot of fun. It's kind of like what you guys do. It's like, whatever you guys banter about is really interesting.
We are no stranger to being weird, so we can relate in that aspect very much. Carlos, so I did stumble upon something 215 weeks ago. You, I don't know if you released it on this day, but you announced it. But you had a special on Hugh Hefner, and I'm just curious what it was like meeting him, working with him, and then like we're just working on that special with him.
That was a really weird day, I got to tell you, because I've been trying to interview Hugh Hefner for a long, long time to kind of figure out what it is that he had that made so many women do what they did. It's like, what was his magic? And the truth was, there was no magic. He just had a vision for what he wanted, and he pursued it. You guys are in Chicago. I mean, he started in Chicago as a magazine editor and worked in, for Esquire magazine and all these things. And so he had a long, long history. And in LA, okay, so let's say outside of LA, he's regarded as kind of like this guy who did a magazine full of naked girls. In LA, he's an icon. This guy is he was one of the power players of Los Angeles. When he moved his operation here, it was a big deal. And then the mansion was a place that kind of is iconic, and people were talking about, this mansion, what goes on in the mansion and all that kind of stuff. So with all that in my head, and, as a kid, when you're a little kid and you open up your first Playboy magazine, you go, whoa, what is this? and you realize what the world is all about in that regard. And it's, for any guy who says he never did it, you're a liar. But the truth is that when you drive up the driveway to the mansion, you go, so this is the place, huh? Okay. And then you walk through the doors. People greet you, and it's really nice. And it was some guy in really bad shoes and terrible clothes, and he goes, "Yeah, come on this way, blah blah blah. Set your stuff up here, blah 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 blah." And I'm looking around, going, "Where are the playmates?"
Right.
Well, guess what? There are no playmates. It's just Hugh's house. And he comes down the stairs in his little red bathrobe, and he looked really, really old to me, and he smiled and he shook my hand and he goes, I've been watching you a long time. It's really nice to meet you. So it was nice that he had watched me on TV. And we sat down and started just chatting like old pals. And we went through the usual questions, and I have to admit that I felt a little creepy being in there. It was just a little weird because, you kind of have in your head what it was like there at one time, maybe in the 60s and 70s and in the 80s. But sitting there across the room across the, in the living room with him talking was really interesting. And this is a guy who found a niche, and he said, that's where I'm going to go. I'm going to go there. And so that's what he talked about to me, was that he had a vision, and he executed his vision perfectly, and he made him a bazillionaire, and he did very well in his life, and then he died. I mean, that's just an amazing story, but it's an American success story that can't be denied. I remember having a hard time pitching that to my editors and the people at KTTV when I did the special, because he's a very, a controversial figure, and people call him sexist and blah, 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 all this kind of stuff. And I wanted to know, and I wanted to see for myself who this guy was. And I think we revealed a side of him that people hadn't known. We mostly talked about business and how his business flourished, given what he was really known for.
Do you think, personality wise, was that one of your bigger interviews, or have you had some other large people under your belt?
No, he's not. He's by far not. I mean, I interviewed Donald Trump. I've interviewed Jimmy Carter, George H.W. Bush, Ronald Reagan's vice president, Colin Powell. I mean, I've interviewed some pretty important people. The president of Mexico, Carlos Salinas. I've interviewed, everybody from Tom Hanks to Julia Roberts to, it just goes on and on. It's just part of the job here in Los Angeles, is that all these people come through the studio and you get a chance to meet them. Some kids would think Taylor Swift would be the biggest interview I ever did. I interviewed her when she was 14 and was just releasing her first album. So, I would say, I did a special on two people that I really wanted to get to know. Betty White and of course him. And so he was one of the celebrities that I always wanted. Hugh Hefner is one of those guys that I wanted to at least connect with, to see what it was, what it was about him. And so I did three people: Dick Van Dyke, Betty White, and Hugh Hefner, all about the same age, all in the same kind of group. We've lost Hugh Hefner, but Betty White and Dick Van Dyke are still with us.
What did you think of Betty White?
Oh, love her.
Yeah.
Love her. She was an amazing sweetheart. Just, everything you expect her to be, she is. And I really feel lucky that I got a chance to flirt with her and talk with her and just have a good time. We laughed a lot. She's naturally very funny, very giving, and very warm. And she was very generous with her time. We spent a lot of time with her. And my friend John Patton set it all up, and I was so excited to make that happen. And my friend Shelley Inchewald, she produced the whole special, and it was really well done. And we won some awards for that special, and it's called Love Betty White. If you want to look it up, it's on BEOND TV. So
with Betty White, Hugh Hefner, and those icons under your belt, as well as multiple presidents, were any of I'm just curious which interview throughout your career where you yourself were most nervous for, and you were like, this needs to go right because there's one take and it just needs to be, I need to do this right?
Oh, I think nerves really happened early in my career. I don't think I in the last 30 years I've been nervous at all interviewing people, because I just sit down and have a chat with them. But early on, I interviewed some, pretty important people at the time. Let me think back at, I interviewed Alice Cooper in 1978. Now,
wow.
Alice Cooper, he's kind of a wild guy. I interviewed him and Bernie Taupin. Bernie Taupin was writing hit songs with Elton John at the time, and he was working on an album with Alice Cooper. We went into the studio. I'm I think all of 24 years old or something like that, 25. And he's this cool rock star. We go into the studio, and it's full of all this really kind of creepy, dark stuff. And I'm expecting fully, made up Alice Cooper, blah, blah, blah. No, well, he shows up and he's like been playing golf, so he looks like a normal guy. But he's in a studio with Bernie. And I literally was shaking. My hands were shaking. I go, this is the biggest star I've ever met. And I asked him a lot of really stupid questions, and he made fun of me, and Bernie Taupin and him were laughing at me. And I said, you guys are really it's like, why are you making fun of me? He goes, because you're so green, man. You've never done this. I said, does it show? They go, wow, man, you got a lot of work to do, but we'll go along with your game, whatever it is.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask about Tom Hanks just being like, is he really that? But like behind the scenes, is he really still feel like America's dad material?
Yeah. I mean, Tom is a great friend of the KTLA Morning News, which is the show that I hosted for almost 20 years. And he's always been a big fan of just a regular guy. And he comes off as a regular guy. He is a regular guy, very talented regular guy. But he and Rita have been really good friends to us. And I appreciate his kind of everyman attitude. And he is, it's funny. They call him America's dad now because he's older, but he was America's kid because, he was doing a lot of fun movies back in the day when he was a lot younger. And so, we're both getting grayer. I know he's letting his hair go gray. I'm not. I'm coloring it. So it's a difference, man. But he, depending on the role, he changes his look.
Yeah.
But he's a great guy. Yeah. Tom Hanks is wonderful.
Yeah. And like, was your interview with Donald Trump, was that pre or post presidency or during?
No, way before. I first interviewed Donald Trump in New York and back in the 80s. Yeah, back in the 80s. And then later on in the 90s, when he finished writing his book, The Art of the Deal, he came in to pitch that book at KTLA, and we got to talk to him. It was so funny because he walked in and his publicist said, whatever you do, don't reach out to shake his hand. He doesn't like to shake hands. So because we are who we are at the KTLA show, we all went, hey, Donald, how are you? Don't tell us not to do something because we'll do it. Right. And so he very, very nicely shook everybody's hand and we patted him on the back. He says, he doesn't like to be touched. He doesn't like to shake hands. Don't do it. So we, of course, made it an overt ability, went out there and just kept shaking his hand. And he sat down and he doesn't like to get close. We got really close to him and we talked about his book and we teased him about all the stuff that he talked about in his book. And he took it with great humor. I mean, I really enjoyed my conversation with him. And many years later, just before he ran for president, I had another occasion to spend some time with him and talk with him. But a much older, a little bit more, believe it or not, a more mature Donald Trump than I met in the 90s. But a lot of people would argue that, there's the word mature and Donald Trump don't go together. That's a whole different conversation.
Well, I mean, at like the 80s was like his starting out getting big. Like you got to imagine, I mean, he had found his money and was probably not mature at all. I wouldn't be if I had that. If I was him in the 80s, no, I wouldn't have been mature at all.
I don't think if you were him in the 80s, I don't think you'd be alive.
I don't think. Yeah, that's for sure. Yeah, that's a good observation.
Carlos, moving from like around from San Diego to LA, I'm trying to figure out what sport teams you like.
Oh, that's easy. Born and raised in San Diego, so diehard San Diego Chargers fan. Was sick to my stomach when they left and moved to LA. I have tried desperately to separate myself from the LA Chargers. I actually threw all my stuff into a box, all my helmet. I had 6 helmets from the eras of, the Chargers over the years. Yeah. I had them on my mantle in my man cave, posters, banners, pictures with the Chargers. I'd done some work with them. I was a super fan. In fact, I had a Chargers lamp that I used to put on the desk at KTLA because I rooted for the Chargers in Los Angeles. Mm-hmm. And the LA Rams are still here, and so were the Oakland Raiders, who became the LA Raiders, not the Chargers. And I defiantly put my Charger lamp on the desk and got all kinds of letters from Raider haters and Rams fans and stuff. And how could you be in Los Angeles? But I was true to my team. And when they left, they cut my heart out, and I felt terrible. But guess what? I'm back.
Okay, I was going to ask. I mean, Justin Herbert's pretty amazing, but can you?
But I mean, that makes sense. I mean, that just like, so you're back rooting for the Chargers, right?
Yeah, I'm back rooting for the Chargers and the Padres. I've never left the Padres. I love it.
Yeah, but I had a similar situation with my grandma was a huge Baltimore Colts fan.
Yeah.
back in the day. And
Not in
then
the United States, yeah.
yeah, and then I grew up with her being an Indianapolis Colts fan, and like the rest of my family is like Bears diehard, and I was like, which is super sad for a bunch of reasons. But then I was like, Grandma, like, why are you like, go Bears? You got to go Bears, you know? And she's like, no, because we had them first in Baltimore, and like that was the whole thing. So I mean, it completely makes sense.
Yeah, it does make sense. But it's tough when you move, and they really just destroy the San Diego fan base in a way that it was so hurtful. And I knew what happened in Indianapolis and how sad people were there. Not in Baltimore.
Yeah.
When they left in the middle of the night and everything, Dean Spanos actually in our face left and took the team.
Yeah.
I was going to say, yeah. Can you just like take us back to that moment as in like kind of the mood of San Diego? Cause it's hard for me, or I guess anyone outside of San Diego, to really understand what it's like to have that childhood team that, you're rooting for, that you grew up around, leave, just literally up and leave, and now they leave to like a bigger market to get some more money because the NFL is about money. Like, can you understand it from a perspective? And then, did like the whole city of San Diego just say "F you, Roger Goodell"?
I'm telling you, the emotions were really, really high, and I have to say that growing up in San Diego, the last place you want to go is Los Angeles. I think there's a real there's a divide between, we have Camp Pendleton, which is a Marine Corps base, between what's considered the Los Angeles area and San Diego County. So we have this divide, but everybody who grows up in San Diego thinks it's the greatest city in the world, the best weather, the best everything. We have the San Diego Chargers, we have the Padres, we have beaches, we have, everything we could possibly want. So when the Spanos family took over the team from Gene Klein, who moved the team from Los Angeles to San Diego in 1960, we felt like we'd been betrayed. And every single day on the news, we covered people burning jerseys and camping out in front of the Charger headquarters and protesting and wanting to have Dean Spanos sell the team, or people trying to do all kinds of things to keep the team in San Diego. Spanos just wanted too much from the city, and the city wasn't willing to give it. And in turn, I think we lost a massive asset for the city of San Diego. And I have my own feelings about how that affects kind of the psyche of San Diegans. But those of us who are diehard Charger fans really felt the pain. And I cheered when some guy paid to have an airplane banner flying over the stadium in LA saying Dean Spanos sucks,
Right.
I mean, I was all for that. I was like, yeah, way to go. But I understand as a business owner, you got to take care of your business, try to make, your team more valuable. I guess it is more valuable in Los Angeles now that they have SoFi. It's an incredible place to play football and to watch football. But, it's tough. Like LA already has everything. Why would we give them our team on top of that? Like it really angers a lot of us. And then they've knocked down our stadium in Mission Valley, and they put up a little puny stadium for the San Diego State Aztecs. And it just seems like we've gone backwards instead of forwards. Instead of getting a bigger stadium like Denver, for example, we end up with nothing, with no professional team, and with no professional soccer team. No NBA team. We have a baseball team. Thank you very much. And that's it. And so it's a little bit tough. And I could go on and on about San Diego sports, but from a football perspective, it really hurt.
So would you say football is your like number one favorite sport, or like did you play football? Like what was the connection?
I played 1 year of high school football. I tried out because nobody else tried out. We had, I think, 25 try out, and we all made it, so it wasn't like a big deal. My high school was mostly known as a swimming school and baseball school. The Boone family came from my high school, so all the Boones that played baseball came through Crawford High.
Wow.
So that was what we were well known for, and we won lots of championships in swimming and water polo. I did play a couple of years of water polo, then transferred to football and played football. But my favorite sport, honestly, is soccer. I love soccer. I'm a big soccer fan.
Carlos, would you trade all 22 Emmys to have the Chargers, if the Chargers would have won a Super Bowl in San Diego?
No.
No.
Come on, that's a stupid question, and you know that. He's like,
I was just curious to his devotion to Phillip Rivers, and the Chargers, and was just curious.
The closest the Chargers got, I mean, I went to the '93 Super Bowl and against the Niners. The Niners, swept the floor with us. I mean, it was really mopped the floor with us. It was a terrible game. But I really wanted the Dan Fouts team to go to the Super Bowl. They were one game away. I think they were playing the Cincinnati Bengals in what's called the Ice Bowl. It was like 60 below zero. It was brutally cold. They couldn't hold on to the ball, and Cincinnati just won by the luck of the draw. No team really belonged on that field. It was so dang cold. That was a team I wished had won the Super Bowl because they were one of the best. Kellen Winslow was on that team. I mean, Dan Fouts. I mean, you just named the big names that came out of that group. They're the ones that should have won the Super Bowl. But no, it doesn't mean that much to me. Super Bowl, who cares?
Gotcha. I do have a question about San Diego. So. Okay. Let's say someone is going to take a weekend trip to San Diego. Can you give me like 3 spots that they have to hit and why?
Well, the first place you got to go is La Jolla Shores. It's a beautiful beach, and it's a beautiful flat, giant beach with a Scripps Pier on one side and then La Jolla Rocks and Cove on the other side. It's a fantastic place to go. And it usually is filled with tourists. So that's number one. Number 2, the Hotel del Coronado on the Coronado Island, which is fantastic. You go over the big bridge, over the bay, and see this hotel that was built in the 1800s on basically a deserted island. And let's see, number 3. What would be number 3? Oh, I would eat at Costera, the restaurant Costera, which I love.
What's your order?
What do I order there?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Tacos. I mean, my name's Carlos.
Well, my name's Jackson, and I would also like tacos. So.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, it's hard to pass up tacos.
Their tacos are pretty darn good. Yeah, it's a Mexican restaurant, believe it or not, but it's kind of a Mexican fusion. It's really fancy tacos.
Yeah. Well, and last time I was in San Diego, I was at like a conference, and someone, it was like the last day, and someone was like, "Oh, I'm going to the Coronado," and I was like, "Oh," I keep hearing about it every time I've been there, and I just haven't gotten a chance to go. So, but now I have something to look forward to next time I go.
Yeah, Little Italy's pretty cool too.
Yeah, I went there, and then I ended up just staying in the gas lamp, and then I got drunk.
Yeah, I mean, Little Italy, you got Balboa Park, which is fantastic. Coronado, the beaches are amazing. Wind and Sea is amazing. It is an amazing place to grow up. Think about, a kid in the 50s where we drank out of hoses and rode our bikes without helmets. I mean, we were dangerous kids. We loved it.
Yeah, well, I mean, so. When you said earlier that you grow up in San Diego and then you go to LA and you're like, it's like I personally felt the exact same way because first time I ever went to California was San Diego, and I went to San Diego like 3 or 4 times before I even went to LA. And by the time I went to LA, I was like, I'm unimpressed. I was like, this is how I imagined it. Like San Diego was like, what? No way. Yeah. Because LA is the one you hear about all the time. I was like, But
it's a very industrial feeling city to me compared to San Diego. And once you get past the Hollywood sign and Santa Monica Pier, that's about it. Malibu's nice. I mean, but there are nicer beaches in South Carolina than there are in California. So.
Well, and I actually have I was like right downtown, so I did end up going to Santa Monica Pier and doing all that stuff while I was in LA. Yeah. I even went to the Staples Center, did that. But I mean, San Diego was still number one. I mean, if I had to pick a place in California. So. Yeah.
Well, and Carlos, did you hear about the recent renaming of the Staples Center?
You mean Crypto.com?
Crypto.com Arena on Christmas officially for $700 million.
Such a deal. Amazing. I don't know. It's going to be really hard for us to stop calling it. Look, remember Denver when Mile High Stadium, everybody called it Mile High Stadium. And then it became Invesco Field or something at Mile High. And it's really, it's all marketing. And so Crypto.com Arena, I love this on the news, somebody said, oh yeah, so we'll call it the Crypt, the place other teams come to die.
God.
I like that.
Well, and the same thing happened in Chicago with
Sears Tower.
Well, I was going to say, Sears Tower is now the Willis Tower, and that can just.
Yeah, what you talking
right
about,
off.
Willis? No
yeah,
way.
but I was texting someone today, and I said, when I die, I want my ashes spread off of the Sears Tower, and they were like, "Don't you mean the Willis Tower?" And I was like, "No, I don't. I want it to be renamed and then spread my ashes."
Right.
But the same thing happened with the White Sox. It was Comiskey, and then it was U.S. Cellular, and now it's Guaranteed Rate, and everyone's like, "Boo, no!"
Right.
But because the giant red arrow points down, it was just a bad mix. But
it's all marketing, and they mess with those iconic things, and you just go, well, can't control it. It's a lot of money.
Yeah, it's like I would love to see them try and rename something like Fenway, and people will just be like,
yeah, it's not going to happen. It's like naming Wrigley, I don't even know, Starburst Field.
Well, and actually, with the Cubs, that happened, and they bought someone, they changed ownership. It's not owned by Wrigley anymore, but they kept the name Wrigley, and that's how it should be done.
Yeah, you have to.
So
yeah, well, the Wrigley family, of course, was famous. I mean, the Gum family. So
yeah,
that's like the first stadium named that way. I think one of the oldest ones, anyway.
Yeah,
Carlos, we appreciate you. We appreciate you coming on. I do have one of my last questions. As one that has interviewed people and talked to people professionally for his entire life, what advice can you give to a couple of idiots like ourselves that interview and talk to people all the time as well? Like, did you have the same preparation you did for every single interview, or did you have different routines for the people that for people with different backgrounds? Like, what was your mindset and your goal, I guess, for each interview?
Yeah, I kind of do the same thing with everybody, and that is I immerse myself in whatever person I'm going to interview. I want to learn everything that I can, and I take notes. I don't write questions out. I take somebody's into Volvo cars, or they're into tennis, or they like the beach, or they're into their kids, and I'll do bullet points. And depending on how because the conversation that you have with an interview sort of flows organically and naturally through subjects, and you want to remember the things that you wrote down in the bullet points, because if you write out long questions, and I've seen some hosts with cards with long questions, and they're trying to read the question, you can't really read the question. So you look at the word or two words or three words that basically say what you think will connect to them. Like you said, oh yeah, and I realized that you took piano lessons when you were 14. You think that propelled you to do what you're doing today. Just something simple like that. And so there's kind of an immersion process, and you have to be really focused on the person you're interviewing. And remember that it's not about you, it's about them. Andy Rooney one time, I don't know if you remember who Andy Rooney was, but he used to work on 60 Minutes. And at the end of every 60-minute show, he would give you his take on what was going on in the world. And he would say, anyway, you wonder why a guy would do blah, 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 blah. He had a really funny way of doing that. Well, he came to KTLA, and I was so excited to tell him about the time that he and I had lunch at CBS with a couple of other of his colleagues. And I'm on the air, and I'm telling him the story, and he says, would you hold on? We're not here to talk about you. We're here to talk about me.
On air?
On air. He slapped me down so hard. Everybody laughed. It was hilarious, but he made his point. The point was, hey, Mr. Interviewer, you're supposed to be talking about me, not you. So I said, oh, never mind. Never mind. The lunch was not that good anyway.
Oh, my goodness.
Well, and I think that is something that I don't know. I mean, it's a little different with a podcast than a talk show, I feel. But
Thank God we're not live.
Yeah, but yeah, I know, right? But we tried that. Yeah, if you check out our YouTube channel, you can see all of our early episodes. There's one where the audio is just dog shit for the entire episode.
I mean, we were just experimenting. That's really what we were doing.
But that's the thing is, like, I feel like when I'm in conversation with someone, I always relate to people through different stories. Like I said, told the one about my grandma, how she liked the Colts. But I mean, it was like, it's that thing that I'm always struggling with, where I go, oh, should I like even add that? Because like no one gives a fuck about my grandma liking the Colts. But
that's not true. Now, for example, we've had an hour here to talk, and usually in my world we have 3 minutes, 3 to 6 minutes max. So we have to get to it. It's like we don't have a lot of time. And on a rare occasion, like what you mentioned with Hugh Hefner, you know, I had a couple of hours to talk with him, and we cut it down to an hour. So, you know, it depends on the format and what you're doing. If you have an opportunity to, you know, talk to somebody and they say, look, I'm here to pitch a movie. So you start up and you say, hey, you know, the superhero guy. Name a superhero guy. Can't my mind.
Michael.
Iron Man, Batman.
Yeah, any of those guys. And he goes, so he's here. And look, he's in the new Batman movie. Tell me about the movie. And it's like 2-second question, 30-second answer, another, you know, quick question, another third, and then, hey, thanks so much for being here. We'll see you. Check it out in the movie theaters. And we're out. There's no chance to really develop a rapport or anything like what we've done here. I think we have a good rapport, the three of us.
Yeah.
I think so too. I mean, you're going to send us a couple of Grammys that we can show people.
Emmys.
I don't have any Grammys. I have Emmys.
I'm sorry.
I said that to him before the show too. He was like, wow, how many Grammys? And I'm like, Emmys.
Of course. I mean, that's all right. Because the very first interview we did, I messed up her last name. And I was telling both of them, I was like, this is how you say it. This is how you say it. And then I brought her onto the episode and completely butchered her last name.
Yeah, he like said it like 20 something times and was like, all right, don't mess it up, guys. He was like looking at us. I was like, I think I got it. And then he gets on and like completely butchers it. And I was like, but thank you so much, Carlos, for coming.
You got the rap song. That's good. I saw him do that. Let's wrap it up. I got it.
Hey, we're at our hour limit. We had some technological problems. We don't want to keep you too long. You've been great.
It's all good. I really enjoyed talking with you guys.
Yeah, we had a blast talking to you, learning about the, you know, journalism and the industry as a whole, the stuff we don't see, like Emmys.
How to be more professional.
But yeah, this is great, and I'll let you know when the episode's out. And then where can people follow you?
Well, I'm on Instagram and everything else. It's Carlos Amezcua on Instagram, at Carlos TV Radio on Twitter, and of course www.BEOND.TV is the website that you can check out all the stuff that we're doing there. So join us.
And we will include all those links in the description below. So if you want to check out Beyond TV, make sure to click on that. And we'll see you all next time on the Untied podcast.
Thank you again, Carlos.
So long.